Welcome, dear friends, to this full moon ceremony. Tonight, we celebrate the sun in the sign of Scorpio and the moon in its opposite sign, Taurus. This month, we have another supermoon, meaning that the moon is very close to the earth, actually closer than it's been at any time this year. That's why it will look so much larger than normal. Be prepared, though. It's bound to stimulate our emotional bodies. So be aware of your sensitive nature around this full moon and pause to consider how to respond rather than how to react. Now let us explore for a few minutes the aspects that are occurring in the sky at this moment. Aspects in astrology are defined as angles that are formed between the planets on the 360-degree zodiac wheel. They show how planetary energies blend and clash or challenge each other. These interactions influence how traits manifest in a person's life. Some aspects bring ease, others provoke growth through conflict. The astrologer Juliana McCarthy explains the aspects for this month like this, quote, November begins in the midst of great confusion and electric change. Yay! Mercury opposed Uranus on October 29th, triggering revelations and disruptions that may have jolted our nervous systems and spun our minds into overdrive. I sure felt that this week. The intensity continues as Mars opposes Uranus on November 4th, today, igniting courage, hairpin turns, and chaos. Neptune hovers in the final degrees of Pisces, further destabilizing us by blurring the boundaries and obscuring truth. The key is to release our need for control and trust with a capital T, especially since we can't see what's next. The urge to break free from constraints is immense this month. Yet amid Uranus's lightning bolts, November invites us to slow down and integrate the upheaval that's been rampant since last July. 3 consecutive grand water trines, anchored by a rare Jupiter-Saturn trine, offer profound healing and emotional support throughout the latter half of this month. This is a welcome relief. At the same time, however, Mercury retrograde turns us inward for reflection, review, and recalibration. November is a beautiful month for rest and retreat, and to forgive ourselves for any trouble that we've found ourselves in. The grand water trines are ready to wash away our jagged edges and allow us grace. Liberation and breakthrough surge throughout this month. The planets are encouraging us to release whatever keeps us confined, suppressed desires, inauthentic expression, outdated relationships, or limiting beliefs, while deepening our capacity for truth. We're invited to embrace sudden shifts while also taking time to process, feel, and integrate. Unquote. That's a lot to take in, but it means we're in for a lot of interesting dynamics this month. So maybe these reassuring words from the poet Rumi will help. Called Find the Quiet in the Storm. Headlines scream. Phones ring. Some days the world feels too sharp, too loud, too raw to touch, and chaos dances at our doorstep. But I've learned to find sanctuary in small moments of grace. The way sunlight paints shadows on the walls, how wind whispers through the trees, the steady rhythm of my own breath when I remember to just breathe. I've learned to turn off the noise, to silence the endless chatter, to find strength in gentle things. A cup of coffee at dawn, a moment of kindness between strangers, the quiet courage of growing things. They say the world's gone mad, but perhaps the secret is knowing when to step away from the storm, when to guard your peace like gold, when to let your heart be still in a world that never stops spinning. For in this rush of endless moments, we must remember to be gentle with ourselves and with each other, to find beauty in broken places, to create spaces of quiet wonder in corners of our own making. This is how we stay whole, not by hardening our hearts, but by knowing when to soften, when to rest, when to breathe, when to let the world's noise fade into the background of our being. End quote. So let us commit this month to finding beauty in the broken places and to create spaces of quiet wonder in our lives. Let's move on now to Scorpio and Taurus. In this Scorpio-Taurus polarity, we meet the dichotomy of the darkness and the light. Scorpio invites us to travel into our depths, into the underworld, to meet our shadow selves. If we traverse that journey with integrity and clarity, we emerge into the illuminating presence of our true essence. The bullseye of Taurus literally lights up all our darkness and transforms it into sacred energy to be used for a higher purpose. The exact moment of the full moon is tomorrow at 5:19 p.m. We know, first of all, because it is a super full moon, that our emotional bodies will be triggered. We will be more sensitive to the energy around us and more easily triggered by other people and events. It will be important to maintain our balance. A tool that I've found useful recently is to periodically during the day ask myself, where's my mind right now? Since everything is energy and vibration, we know that our evolutionary journey accelerates when we keep our vibration high. So when I notice my thoughts are negative or filled with fear, first of all, I see if I can just allow that feeling, just be with it. Then I say to myself, for example, fear is present, not I am afraid. I'm so much more than my fear. And acknowledging it by saying it is present, we detach a bit from the emotional reaction. I am a soul, and my personality is having a fearful moment. I don't want to identify with it. I just want to acknowledge it and allow it to be just what it is. I then place it in the cauldron of my loving heart. That is acceptance. So we aren't avoiding it or wishing it to go away. We're accepting it as part of it, what it means to be human. Then I try to turn my attention to something that will uplift me, raise my vibration to a higher level. In that way, I assist in the raising of my consciousness. Warrior am I, and from the battle I emerge triumphant, is the mantra that's used for the illumined Scorpio. We are asked to do battle with our lower selves, our ego, the unredeemed parts of ourselves that usually hang out in the underworld. Once these unfinished parts of ourselves are recognized, accepted, and held in the cauldron of a loving heart, transformation is possible. And this is the Scorpio journey. We are tested, we have trials, but we emerge triumphant. The Scorpio season has sometimes been labeled the season of dying, because we are entering the winter months where the old dies and goes into hibernation until the light of the sun returns in the spring to bring forth new growth. And it is true that if we are to make this journey successfully, something within us must die to give way for whatever new is waiting to be born. Scorpio is the sign of death and rebirth. It's also a fixed water sign, which provides a certain stability to the energy, but it can also keep us stuck if we aren't open to change. And when this stuckness occurs in the emotional realm, we can freeze up emotionally. Nothing moves when we are frozen. We just defend and cover up and repress our woundedness. Once we break through the resistance, energy is released that can bring more vitality to ourselves and new energy to our relationships. When the sun is in Scorpio and directly opposite the moon in Taurus, there's always a battle that takes place between the conscious emotional desires of Scorpio and the unconscious needs of Taurus for love and security. The challenge is to integrate these conflicting energies. With Scorpio energy floating around this month, we need to be more mindful of whatever tendencies we have to act out the lower octave of Scorpio, which is symbolized by the scorpion. We may be tempted to use our stinger this month if we feel wounded and in need of psychic protection. If we are operating at a higher level, we will courageously face our pain and meet it with an open heart. The Scorpio warrior says, let the battle begin, let blood flow, let the war between the two sides commence and only end when the true victor emerges. Again, we repeat the Scorpio mantra, warrior am I, and from the battle I emerge triumphant. This is the battle between the soul and the personality. And the true winner is the disciple who emerges from the fray bloody and torn, but whole and integrated. The metal that he or she carries is consciousness, which is the love that transcends duality, the love that heals and brings any and all oppositional forces into true unity. The primary duality inherent in our earthly life is between life in form and life in death. This is because life is unending and eternal. Death as an ultimate finality is an illusion, but death as part of the cycle of life is a reality. Taurus represents life in material form. It is essentially the urge to incarnate, to be in the flesh, to hold forth in form, and to hold on through its fixity, no matter what. Scorpio speaks about the release from the forms of desire, known to us as death, and then on to a higher level, to regenerate desire so that incarnation on the material plane permits evolution and refinement to take place. Personality-centered people fear and resent death, whether this is the death of a favorite pet or a person or a thing, or the death of a feeling, a thought, or an ambition. Scorpio opposes Taurus, and this tension between our urge for the materialization of energy and the nature of energy itself to cycle in and out of manifestation characterizes human life. There are three factors that distinguish the higher-natured Scorpio as he or she unfolds along the spiritual path. The first one is the need to transform her attachment to the desires of the personality into the goals and purposes of the soul. This requires the spiritual training necessary so that the individual may become aware of the soul's intent. Number two, to reveal through her actions, life values, and personal field of service that she is preparing herself for the even greater tests that come about as one walks the path. And finally, to demonstrate her responsiveness and sensitivity to the soul's call to action, and to be able to shape one's daily life accordingly. Life in Scorpio may not be the easiest, I can attest to that, but it is certainly incredibly rewarding for those who can pass the trials and emerge victorious from the battles. Daniel Scranton says this about the Scorpio energy, quote, "Scorpio territory is not easy. Facing our deepest feelings and fears, confronting our demons and our death is the most difficult work we will ever do. But the rewards that it brings, inner peace, freedom, and wholeness, make it all worthwhile. Doing the work means being willing to feel those feelings that you become aware of once you get grounded, heart-centered, and you put down the drugs, alcohol, and other distractions that have kept you from feeling them. You purge when you dive deep into a feeling that is uncomfortable, unwanted, and that no one else in your family has ever been able to acknowledge exists. You are doing work for your genetic line. You are doing work for your past life selves. You are doing work for other beings in other parts of the galaxy who don't have the emotional intelligence that you do. It's not about defeating anyone or anything. This is about feeling who you really are as source energy beings, as pure, unconditional love. And it's about letting that flow through you without being embarrassed or afraid of what someone else might think or do in response to you fully embracing who you really are. When you can do that, you know that you have done the work. But you have to go through the anxiety, the fear, the depression, sadness, anger, sometimes even rage to get there. The tricky part is recognizing that both exist inside of you. And just because you feel one doesn't mean the other is now extinct or negated. You just came to choose the light over and over and over again, and to encourage others to do so as well." End quote. Remember that Scorpio is the 8th sign of the zodiac. So we leave behind the focus on our own personal life and enter the realm of the impersonal. In the ancient texts, Scorpio is known as the sign of the reversing impulse, for it is through Scorpio that the way of the disciple is revealed. This is exemplified in mythology by that great hero, Hercules. Every year, I like to repeat this mythical journey of Hercules because it so beautifully exemplifies the Scorpio journey.